There is a man walking alone at night. His hands are trembling. His chest feels hollow, as if someone has scooped out the very center of his being. He stares at his phone screen, the final message burning into his eyes like a brand. 4 words. That's all she wrote. I don't feel it. He replays the night in his mind. The laughter, the shared stories, the small touches that he swore meant something. But now, standing under a flickering streetlight, he feels like he's been erased from her world. A ghost, rejected not just by her, but by something deeper, something ancient, something beyond her conscious control. And that is the dark truth no one tells you about rejection. Women do not merely reject the man in front of them. They reject what he represents within the theater of their unconscious mind. The rejection is never about the surface, never about the little mistakes, never even about the single moment. It is about something woven into the archetypal pattern of male and female. And this is where Carl Jung becomes the prophet of your pain. Jung understood that rejection, especially from women, is not just a social misfortune. It is an existential revelation. It is a mirror held up to the soul. When she says no, when she withdraws, when her eyes grow cold, it is not just her voice you are hearing. You are hearing the voice of the collective unconscious, the voice of the archetypal feminine declaring, you have not yet embodied the man you are meant to be. Jung taught us that we do not live only in the daylight of rational choice. We live inside a labyrinth of symbols, instincts, and archetypes that govern us far more than our polite words ever could. The man who is rejected often believes the surface excuse, that he wasn't tall enough, rich enough, confident enough. But the truth is far more terrifying and far more liberating. Women reject men because, at an unconscious level, they are testing alignment with the eternal masculine image within their psyche. In Jungian language, this is the archetype of the animus and anima, the eternal dance of man and woman inside the soul. To be rejected is to be measured against an invisible template, a shadow standard you never knew existed. That is why rejection feels so devastating, because it is not just personal, it is archetypal. Imagine for a moment the ancient hunter. The tribe depended on him, not just for food, but for strength, for vision, for the courage to walk into the darkness where no one else dared. If he faltered, if he showed weakness, if he lacked the fire that signaled his alignment with the archetypal masculine, the women of the tribe would not choose him, not out of cruelty, but out of survival. This ancient law has not vanished. It has merely disguised itself in modern clothing, a swipe on the phone, the polite excuse, the withdrawal of affection. These are the echoes of a primal sorting mechanism written into the unconscious psyche of woman herself. The common man rages against this truth. He curses women. He retreats into bitterness. He believes he has been unfairly measured. But this collapse of spirit only confirms the rejection, because bitterness is proof of weakness. The collapse is not in the rejection. It is in the man's interpretation of it. He takes a symbolic act and reduces it to petty cruelty. And in doing so, he loses the opportunity hidden in the moment. Jung would say the rejection is a message from your own unconscious, projected outward through the figure of the woman. She is not just saying no. She is summoning you to confront your shadow, the parts of yourself that remain undeveloped, unclaimed, untransformed. Every rejection is an initiation ritual disguised as pain. The power response, then, is not to beg, not to curse, not to obsess over the woman who withdrew. The power response is to see her no as an oracle, a psychic transmission from the depths of being. She is showing you where you do not yet stand as the man who embodies his archetype fully. And when you recognize this, the sting of rejection transforms. It becomes fuel. It becomes an invitation. She is not your executioner. She is your initiator. She is the guardian at the gate of your next evolution. And here lies the perception shift. Rejection is not an ending. It is a symbol. It is the language of the unconscious, communicating to you in the only way it knows, how through the visceral wound of being cast out. If you learn to interpret this language, if you stop taking it personally and begin taking it archetypally, then every no becomes a yes to your higher becoming. You stop seeing women as cruel judges, and you begin seeing them as mirrors of the eternal feminine, guiding you toward the completion of your masculine form. Jung's dark truth is this: women reject men not because they are wicked, but because they are aligned with something older and deeper than either of you. And the man who learns to read this rejection correctly will discover that every wound contains within it the exact blueprint of his transformation. Rejection is not death, it is rebirth in disguise. And if you have the courage to look deeper, you will realize that every woman who has ever rejected you has played the role of an archetypal priestess, carrying out a ritual you did not understand at the time. She is not simply discarding you. She is forcing you into the underworld, into the very crucible where men are either broken or remade. And this is why Carl Jung's lens is essential, because he understood that the human soul speaks in symbols, in myth, in drama. The rejection is the myth you are living without realizing it. And once you learn to see it for what it truly is, you stop drowning in self-pity and begin rising as the hero of your own inner epic. The heart of Jung's insight is that the psyche is not simply rational. It is symbolic. The woman who pulls away is not just Jennifer or Maria or Sophia. She is the anima, the embodiment of the feminine principle as it manifests in your unconscious. She arrives to confront you with your projections, to test you against your idealizations, and ultimately to destroy the false image you cling to. This is why rejection feels like annihilation. It is not merely social humiliation. It is the collapse of a fantasy, the shattering of an illusion you built about yourself and about her. When the fantasy collapses, what is left? Either the ashes of a man consumed by bitterness, or the raw material for a man to build something real, something indestructible. Consider the man who experiences rejection and says, "All women are shallow, cruel, deceptive." He has not learned. He has only buried his pain under resentment. He becomes brittle, fragile, easily shattered again. Now contrast him with the man who stands in the fire of rejection and says, "This is my shadow calling me out. This is the hidden part of me that must evolve." That man transforms rejection into initiation. That man hears Jung whispering, "What you resist not only persists, it grows stronger." If you resist the message of rejection, it will chase you again and again, in different women, in different circumstances, until you finally confront it. But if you accept it, if you step into it, the cycle breaks. Think of it like this. A woman rejects you, not because of your haircut, not because of the words you used, not even because of your bank account, although she may give those as surface reasons. The deeper reason is that her unconscious measures your energy against the masculine archetype. Do you radiate self-possession? Do you carry the stillness of a man who knows his place in the world? Do you stand with the fire of purpose behind your eyes? Or are you restless, needy, unanchored? She may not articulate this. She may not even consciously know it, but her psyche knows. And her psyche will not allow her to bond with a man who does not resonate with the archetypal pattern she is searching for. This is why so many men are blindsided. They think, "I did everything right. I was nice, attentive, supportive. Why didn't she choose me?" But niceness is not alignment. Supportiveness is not embodiment. Attention is not magnetism. In fact, these often expose the wound more clearly, because they are the behaviors of a man trying to compensate for a lack of inner strength. Women feel this instinctively, and when they feel it, they recoil not out of malice, but because their unconscious is demanding something greater. The rejection is not a judgment of your worth as a soul. It is a verdict on your embodiment of the masculine archetype. Here is where the shift becomes profound. When you begin to view every rejection as a diagnostic tool, not a personal insult, You unlock a path most men never walk. Each no becomes a message. Each withdrawal becomes a mirror. Each cold glance becomes a test. And you begin to ask yourself, not, why does she hate me? But what part of my shadow is she revealing? Where have I failed to embody the fire, the order, the depth of the archetypal masculine? And in that moment, you grow. Jung warned that the man who does not confront his shadow becomes possessed by it. The shadow of rejection is bitterness, self-pity, cynicism. If you refuse to face the deeper meaning of rejection, you become enslaved to those poisons. But if you turn toward it, if you stand in the fire without flinching, you burn away the illusions and emerge with a clearer shape. You become less reactive, less needy, less easily broken. You become dangerous in the best sense of the word, not because you harm, but because you cannot be harmed by trivial slights. That is the man women unconsciously seek. Not the perfect man, not the flawless man, but the man who has faced annihilation and returned with power. So the final question is not, why did she reject me? The final question is, what part of myself was rejected through her? If you dare to ask this, and you dare to answer it, you begin the work of individuation, the great Jungian task of becoming whole. And in that work, you discover that rejection was never your enemy. It was the teacher you ignored. It was the oracle you cursed. It was the key you refused to turn. Until now. Every man must eventually face the moment where his illusions collapse. The heartbreak, the rejection, the silent phone, the cold indifference in her eyes. These are not accidents. They are not random cruelties. They are revelations. And the sooner you learn to read them as such, the sooner you step into the path of transformation. Jung's wisdom pierces here like a blade. What you meet in the outer world is always a reflection of what lives in your inner world. The rejection you receive is not merely about her choice. It is about your psychic state, your alignment or misalignment with the archetypal masculine. When a woman turns away, she is not just saying, "You are not enough for me." She is saying, "You are not enough for yourself." That is the unbearable sting, because deep down, you know it is true. You know there are places within you that are undeveloped, unclaimed, chaotic. You know you live half your life in distraction, in avoidance, in numbing yourself. And women sense this. They are mirrors for the unconscious. Their rejections are psychic diagnostics, revealing where your foundation is cracked. What does the ordinary man do with this? He hides. He tells himself stories. He says, women are fickle. Women are cruel. Women are shallow. He retreats into bitterness, joins echo chambers of other broken men, builds elaborate defenses against the feminine. But all of this is cowardice disguised as wisdom. It is the refusal to confront the deeper truth. And so, his life becomes a graveyard of unintegrated pain. But what does the awakened man do? He does something radically different. He hears the rejection, feels the wound, and instead of turning outward in blame, he turns inward in confrontation. He asks himself the hardest questions. Where am I weak? Where am I hiding? Where have I betrayed my own potential? This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming whole, of integrating the hidden parts of yourself. And rejection is the trigger. It rips away the mask and forces you to see what you did not want to see. Let us dive deeper into the psyche. Jung described the anima, the inner feminine within every man. When you meet a woman, you are not just meeting her. You are meeting your projection of the anima. You cast your inner feminine onto her. You fall in love not just with her, but with the image you created. And when she rejects you, it is not just her withdrawing. It is your anima withdrawing. It is the collapse of your own illusion. That is why rejection feels like death, because a part of you has died. But this death is necessary. It clears the ground for rebirth. It destroys fantasy so you can build reality. Most men never realize this. They remain enslaved to their projections, constantly disappointed, constantly abandoned, constantly bitter. But the man who understands Jung's truth sees every rejection as the death of an illusion and the birth of a possibility. He begins to court not just women, but his own anima. He begins to integrate his inner feminine, to understand her needs, her chaos, her wisdom. And as he does this, something miraculous happens. Women begin to respond differently. Because he no longer projects desperation, he no longer grasps at them to complete him. He becomes whole, and wholeness is magnetic. Think of the mythic hero. He does not become a king because women grant him approval. He becomes a king because he has gone into the underworld, faced his shadow, integrated his anima, and returned with a treasure of self-possession. Only then do women gravitate toward him, not out of duty, not out of pity, but out of instinct. They sense the archetypal masculine has awakened in him. That is the man women cannot reject. Not because he manipulates, not because he pleads, not because he pretends, but because he embodies what their unconscious demands. So when you are rejected, you have two choices. You can collapse, curse women, sink into bitterness, and remain a child in a man's body. Or you can rise, interpret the rejection as a symbolic initiation, and step into the fire of transformation. Jung would say, the choice is yours, but the consequences are eternal. Rejection is not an accident. It is a summons. It is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of the only story that matters, the story of your becoming. Then hear this. Rejection is not the problem. The problem is how you interpret it. The wound itself is neutral. The no, the silence, the withdrawal, the cutting off, these are simply events. What twists the knife is your story about the event. She didn't choose me because I'm not attractive. She left because I don't make enough money. She rejected me because I'm not worthy. These are stories. And every story becomes a prison. Jung warned us. We do not see the world as it is. We see it as we are. So when you interpret rejection through the lens of unworthiness, you condemn yourself to repeat it forever. But there is another way. What if you saw rejection not as proof of your inadequacy, but as evidence of your calling? What if every woman who turned from you was not saying, you are nothing, but rather, you are not yet what you could be? This is the dangerous, liberating perspective, because it removes the illusion of victimhood. It leaves you no excuses. It demands that you grow. And this is precisely what the archetype of initiation always does. Every culture in human history has rites of passage for boys becoming men. They send the boy into the wilderness. They scar his skin. They cut his flesh. They leave him in the dark with only fire to protect him. And only when he survives does he return as a man. Modern men no longer have these rituals. But rejection is the hidden initiation that remains. When she leaves, when she says no, when you feel abandoned, you are being symbolically cast into the wilderness. It is the same pattern, simply disguised in the language of modern relationships. And just like the boy facing the wilderness, you will either collapse or you will rise. This is why Jung insisted that suffering is indispensable to growth, because suffering cracks the surface of your illusions and forces you into contact with your deeper self. When you are comfortable, you never change. When you are adored, you never question. But when you are rejected, you are stripped bare. And only in that bareness can you begin to rebuild on real foundations. So rejection is not just a curse. It is the greatest blessing in disguise, because it forces you into transformation you would never have chosen voluntarily. Now understand this. Women do not consciously know they are playing this role. They do not sit down and say, I will reject this man so he grows. They are simply instruments of the unconscious. Their psyches are wired to seek alignment with the archetypal masculine. If they sense the absence of this alignment, they recoil. This is not cruelty. This is instinct. And instinct does not lie. A woman may deceive herself with words, but her body, her intuition, her unconscious will always tell the truth. That is why her rejection feels so absolute, because it comes not from the surface, but from the depths. So the man must ask himself, how do I align? How do I embody the archetype that women unconsciously seek? The answer is not found in tricks, lines, or strategies. It is found in individuation. It is found in confronting your shadow, integrating your anima, and cultivating presence. Presence is not a performance. It is the stillness of a man who no longer runs from himself. It is the aura of a man who has walked through fire and no longer fears the flame. When you cultivate this, women sense it immediately. They may not be able to explain why, but they feel it, and their unconscious responds with recognition. This is the transformation Jung points us toward, to stop blaming women, to stop resenting rejection, to stop clinging to illusions, and instead to use rejection as a mirror, as a teacher, as an initiation. Every no becomes fuel. Every heartbreak becomes a ritual. Every withdrawal becomes a command. Evolve. The final choice is stark. You can remain the man who collapses at rejection, who curses women, who hides from his shadow. Or you can become the man who thanks rejection for showing him where he must grow, who steps into individuation, who embodies the archetypal masculine. One path leads to bitterness, decay, and loneliness. The other path leads to power, wholeness, and magnetism. And no one can choose for you. So when you are rejected, remember, this is not the end. This is the beginning. This is not her judgment of your soul. This is the summons of your destiny. The unconscious has spoken through her. The question is, will you listen?